The city was busy as always, filled with people rushing to work, talking on their phones, or thinking about their own problems. Cars moved fast, lights changed quickly, and no one had time to look around. But in one quiet corner of the street, near the side wall of a small bakery, sat a man many people walked past without even noticing. His clothes were old, his hair was messy, and he carried a small worn-out bag. His name was Evan. Every morning, Evan sat in the same place. He did not beg for money, he did not ask for help, and he never disturbed anyone. He simply watched the world move in front of him. Children laughed as they passed, adults frowned at their phones, and shopkeepers opened their stores. But no one wondered why Evan sat there. No one asked who he really was. To most people, he was just another homeless man blending into the background. But Evan's eyes told a different story. His eyes were sharp, calm, and strangely observant. He watched everything around him carefully, like someone who understood more than he showed. When someone hurriedly ran across the road, Evan would tense up, as if he feared something might happen. When someone argued loudly, he would lower his gaze, hoping the moment would pass. And when he saw families laughing together, something warm but painful moved inside him. There was one family Evan liked watching the most: a mother, father, and their little girl. They passed by the bakery almost every evening. The little girl always smiled at Evan, even when her parents gently pulled her closer, trying to keep her safe. She would wave her tiny hand, and sometimes she even whispered a soft hi before her parents moved on. That small smile was the only kind thing Evan received in days. But what no one knew was that Evan had a past that could shock everyone. Years ago, he was not homeless. He was not forgotten. He was a talented chef who worked in a busy restaurant known for its delicious food. People loved his cooking, and he worked with passion and joy. But life can change in just one unexpected moment. A fire broke out in the restaurant one night, and although Evan helped many people escape, things went wrong. The blame fell on him, even when he was innocent. His name was ruined. His job was lost. His life fell apart piece by piece. Yet even after everything, Evan never lost one thing: his ability to sense danger. He could notice small details that others ignored. A loose wire, a flickering light, a strange smell, something wrong in the air. It was a gift he carried quietly, a gift that once made him a great chef. But now, this gift simply lived inside him, unseen and unappreciated. As the day turned into evening, Evan felt something unusual in the air. A strange pressure sat deep in his chest. People around him continued their lives as if nothing was wrong, but Evan felt that danger was coming. He did not know how, he did not know when, but he knew something was about to change. He looked at the bakery door, then down the street. His heart beat a little faster. His breath grew slow. His eyes followed the same family as they walked toward a restaurant nearby. Smiling happily, he felt it strongly now. Tonight was not going to be normal. Tonight, something would happen. Something that would make the world finally notice. The man no one looked at twice. Evan woke up the next morning, feeling uneasy. His sleep had been broken, filled with strange flashes of heat, smoke, and loud noises. It almost felt like memories trying to return, memories he had spent years trying to forget. He sat up slowly, rubbing his tired face as the city around him began to fill with noise once again. People hurried by, buses roared down the street, and shopkeepers lifted their shutters. But Evan didn't look at any of them. His eyes were fixed on the restaurant across the road. Something inside him whispered, "Watch carefully." Evan had learned long ago to listen to that quiet voice. It had saved him many times. He noticed a new delivery truck parked behind the restaurant, workers carrying heavy boxes inside. Nothing unusual. But then his eyes moved to a young man stepping through the back door, clearly a new cook. His hands shook slightly as he carried a pot. His footsteps were uncertain. His apron was tied carelessly. Evan frowned. A cook who wasn't steady could be dangerous in a kitchen full of sharp knives. Boiling oil and hot flames. As Evan observed him, a wave of uneasy memories returned. He remembered the night of the fire at his old restaurant, the confusion, the panic, the smell of burning oil. He remembered shouting instructions, guiding people out, saving lives. And yet, afterward, no one believed him. No one defended him. Instead, they blamed him for the accident. "It wasn't your fault," he whispered to himself. But even now he wasn't fully sure. He tried to push the thoughts away, but the feeling stayed. Something was wrong. Something was coming. He could sense it like a storm building in the sky before anyone else could see the clouds. Later in the afternoon, Evan saw the same family again, the mother, father, and their cheerful little girl. They smiled when they noticed him sitting in his usual spot. The little girl tugged at her mother's hand and waved excitedly. Evan raised his hand slightly, giving her a small smile. Her happiness always warmed him. Even on the hardest days. The family walked into the restaurant, the same one Evan had been watching all morning. He felt a shiver in his chest. Usually, he enjoyed seeing them happy, but today something felt wrong. His eyes followed them until they disappeared inside. He tried to relax, but he couldn't. His heartbeat grew faster, and a strange pressure filled his stomach. He leaned forward, squinting at the restaurant windows. The workers looked busy. Customers laughed. Everything looked normal on the outside. But Evan knew better than to trust what he saw. His instincts had never lied. Then he noticed a small detail others would never notice. A faint flicker in the lights above the kitchen door. Too quick for most people to care about. But to Evan, it was a warning sign. Flickering lights meant unstable wires. Unstable wires near a busy kitchen could cause sparks. Sparks near hot oil. His chest tightened. He could smell something unusual too. It was faint, almost hidden by the scent of food. But Evan recognized it instantly, the early sign of burning oil. His heart began to pound. He stood up slowly, scanning every corner of the restaurant with his sharp eyes. The pressure inside him grew heavier, as if someone invisible was pushing him forward. "No," he murmured, "not again. Please, not again." But the signs were all there. The anxious cook, the flickering lights, the smell, the uneasy whispers inside Evan's mind. He felt it now, stronger than ever. Danger was already moving. Quietly, silently, almost unseen. And the family he cared about was sitting right in the middle of it. Evening arrived slowly, painting the sky a soft orange as people filled the streets with tired faces and hungry stomachs. The restaurant across from Evan grew louder as more customers walked in. Families laughed, friends chatted, and workers rushed from table to table. The warm smell of food floated into the air, and from the outside, everything looked peaceful. But inside Evan, the storm was growing stronger. He sat at the edge of the sidewalk, watching the restaurant without blinking. Every movement inside felt important. Every sound made him tense. His instincts were sharper than ever, like his whole body was trying to warn him. He saw the same family, the mother, father, and their cheerful little girl, sitting near the corner table. The little girl played with a small toy and giggled happily. Evan smiled softly, but even that smile was filled with worry. He looked toward the kitchen window again and saw the young cook moving nervously. The boy's hands shook as he chopped vegetables. His eyes darted around, and he kept dropping things. Once, he even hit a metal tray too hard, and the loud sound made several customers turn their heads. Evan felt a chill travel through him. "Something is going to happen," he whispered, almost afraid to speak the words out loud. Then it began. At first, it was small, so small that no one inside the restaurant noticed it. A thin line of smoke rose from behind the kitchen counter. It was almost hidden, almost invisible. The lights flickered again, this time longer than before. The anxious cook panicked and moved too fast. Knocking over a container of oil. The oil slid across the counter and dripped near the heating stove. Evan's eyes widened. He knew what would happen next. He stood up instantly, breathing hard. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the memories of the fire he had tried for years to forget. He remembered the shouting, the flames, the heat on his skin, the look of betrayal when people blamed him afterward. But he also remembered the people he saved. The families. The children. And now another family was in danger. Inside the restaurant, the mother lifted the little girl onto her lap. The father laughed at something the waiter said. They had no idea what was happening only a few steps away. Evan stepped closer to the restaurant door. His heart was beating faster than it had in years. His mind was calculating everything: the distance, the time, the speed at which the fire would spread, the number of people inside. He looked at the smoke again. It was growing slowly, curling upward like a warning finger. And then, it happened. A small spark appeared near the stove. A tiny, dangerous spark. The oil on the counter reacted instantly, creating a sudden burst of flame. It wasn't large yet, but it was enough to start a chain reaction. No one inside saw it. No one smelled it. No one understood the danger. But Evan did. His body moved before his mind could even think. He pushed himself forward, running toward the restaurant with a speed that shocked him. His heart pounded like thunder. His breath rushed out of him in short bursts. This was it. This was the moment. Everything would change. As he grabbed the door handle, he knew something deep inside. He had only 3 seconds to save everyone. 3 seconds to stop another tragedy. 3 seconds to rewrite his past. 3 seconds to become the man he once was. A man who saved lives, and he wasn't going to waste a single one of them. Evan pushed open the restaurant door with a force no one expected. The bell above the entrance rang sharply, and several customers turned their heads in confusion. To them, he was just a homeless man, quiet, harmless, someone they passed every day without a second look. So seeing him burst inside suddenly felt strange, almost alarming. But Evan didn't care what anyone thought. His eyes were locked on the kitchen. His mind was already counting. 3 seconds, that was all he had. Inside the kitchen, the small flame he had seen through the window had grown wider. The oil on the counter caught fire, creating a fast-moving path of heat. The young cook froze, terrified, unable to understand how quickly everything was happening. No one else saw it. No one else sensed danger, but Evan did. He took a deep breath and ran forward. Second. Evan reached the family first, the mother, father, and their little girl sitting at the corner table. Their laughter stopped as Evan rushed toward them. The father stood up in shock, thinking Evan might be causing trouble. But before he could speak, Evan grabbed all 3 of them and pulled them toward the exit with surprising strength. The mother gasped. The little girl screamed. Chairs fell over. People stared. But Evan didn't stop. He knew the fire would reach the oil storage in less than 2 seconds. Second. 2. Without turning around, Evan grabbed a wet towel from a nearby table, soaked with spilled water. He twisted his body and threw it across the kitchen counter precisely where the flame had started. Years of working in a kitchen had trained his hands to be fast, accurate, and fearless. The towel landed perfectly on the fire, slowing it down for a moment. Not enough to stop it, but enough to buy a little time. A worker shouted, "What are you doing?" But Evan ignored him. He kept moving. The flame jumped again, searching for more oil to burn. Smoke rose quickly. The lights flickered harder than before. The restaurant began to fill with heat, but Evan was already on his next move. Second. 3. He reached the fire extinguisher near the wall, pulled out the safety pin, and pushed it across the floor toward the shaking cook. "Use it!" Evan shouted. The cook stared at him for a moment, confused, then realized what was happening and grabbed the extinguisher with trembling hands. He sprayed it at the fire, covering the counter with white foam. The flames hissed loudly, fighting back, but the foam spread fast, choking the fire before it could reach the large oil container. Customers screamed. Workers panicked. But the worst had then stopped. 3 seconds. Only 3. Evan stood there, breathing hard, sweat shining on his forehead. Smoke wrapped around the kitchen, but the fire had slowed. The cook continued spraying until the last flame died out. Silence fell. Not the calm kind, the shocked kind. Evan looked around. Everyone in the restaurant stared at him with wide eyes. The father held his daughter tightly, shaking from fear. The mother covered her mouth, tears forming in her eyes. The other customers sat frozen in their chairs, unsure what had just happened. Finally, the little girl pointed at Evan and whispered loudly, "He saved us." It was only then that the truth began to settle into everyone's heart. The homeless man they ignored every day. The silent figure sitting outside the bakery. The man no one noticed. Had just saved an entire restaurant. The fire alarm rang loudly. Workers rushed to open windows. Oxygen rushed in, clearing the smoke, but no one moved toward the exit. Everyone's eyes stayed on Evan. He had done the impossible. He had changed everything. In just 3 seconds. Restaurant was silent, even though alarms rang in the distance. People were still frozen in shock, staring at the man who had saved them all. Evan stood near the kitchen doorway, chest rising and falling, his hands slightly shaking, not from fear, but from memories that rushed through him like a cold wind. The smoke cleared slowly, drifting out of the windows, revealing the damage that could have become a disaster. The father approached first, holding his daughter in his arms. His voice trembled. You saved us. You saved everyone. How did you know what was happening?" Evan didn't answer. He stared at the floor, wiping sweat from his forehead. He felt uncomfortable with so many eyes on him. Most days, people walked past him without even noticing he existed. Now suddenly, he was the center of the room. It felt strange, almost painful. The mother stepped closer, gently placing her hand on Evan's arm. "Please," she said softly, "tell us. You saw something no one else did." Evan swallowed hard. He didn't want to revisit the past he had buried so deeply. But he also knew that people deserved an explanation. They deserved to know why he moved before anyone else could understand what was happening. He took a slow breath. "I wasn't always like this," he said quietly. "I didn't always live on the street." The customers leaned in. The workers stopped moving. Even the cook holding the fire extinguisher paused, eyes locked on Evan. "I used to be a chef," Evan continued, voice steady but heavy. "A good one. I worked in busy kitchens just like this. But more importantly, I had a sense for danger. I could see small things other people didn't notice." He pointed toward the counter where the fire had started. A flicker in the lights. A shaky hand. Smoke too thin for the nose, but visible to trained eyes. Little signs that most people ignore. The restaurant owner, who had rushed in moments earlier, stepped forward. "You mean, you smelled the fire before anyone else?" Evan nodded. "And I knew it would spread. I understood how fast oil burns. I understood how sparks travel. In my old restaurant, I stopped a fire once. I saved people." But he stopped, his voice cracking. The mother whispered, "What happened?" Evan looked up at everyone, his eyes filled with years of silent pain. "They blamed me. They said I caused it. They said I made things worse. I lost my job. I lost my home. I lost everything. And no one believed what I could actually do." A quiet gasp spread across the room. "So I disappeared," Evan said softly. "I stopped talking. I sat outside, watching kitchens from far away, hoping nothing would go wrong. Didn't want to fail anyone again." The little girl, still in her father's arms, reached out to Evan with her tiny hand. "But you didn't fail," she said with innocent certainty. "You saved us today." Her words hit Evan harder than any memory. The father nodded. "You acted faster than anyone in this building. You saw what none of us could see." The cook stepped forward, his voice breaking. "If you weren't here, we would all be in danger. I didn't know what to do. You saved me too." Evan blinked, overwhelmed. He had spent years being invisible, unwanted, forgotten. But in this moment, these people saw him. Not as a homeless man, not as someone who had failed, but as someone who had protected them. Someone who mattered. The restaurant owner walked up, looking directly into Evan's eyes. "No one believes you?" he said gently. "We believe you. Every one of us. And tonight, you proved who you really are. For the first time in years." Evan felt something warm in his chest, acceptance, respect, and maybe even hope that his secret was no longer hidden. It had finally come to light. After the fire was stopped, and the smoke cleared, the restaurant slowly began to breathe again. People wiped their eyes, workers cleaned the floor, and families hugged each other tightly. But in the middle of all this movement stood Evan, still quiet, unsure what to do next. He had never been the hero in anyone's eyes for many years. He didn't know how to stand in a room where people were looking at him with gratitude instead of fear, pity, or judgment. The mother approached him gently, her eyes soft with emotion. "Please don't leave," she said as Evan stepped back toward the door. "You're safe here. Stay with us for a moment." Evan froze. Kindness always confused him. He didn't know how to receive it. The father joined her and placed a hand on Evan's shoulder. "You saved our family. At least let us thank you." Evan lowered his head. "I didn't do it for thanks," he whispered. "I just couldn't watch it happen again." The little girl walked forward and tugged lightly on Evan's sleeve. "Can you sit with us? Just for today?" she asked with a big hopeful smile. That simple request broke something inside him, something heavy, something old, something tired. Children never pretended. They didn't judge. They said what they felt. Evan nodded slowly. They guided him to their table, the same one where laughter had filled the air moments before. The father pulled out a chair for him like Evan was an important guest. The mother poured him a glass of water with gentle hands. The little girl slid her toy toward him and said, "You can hold it if you want. It makes me—" "You saved my business. You saved lives." He paused, then added, "You don't belong on the street. You belong in a kitchen." Evan shook his head in confusion. I can't go back. My career is over. No one trusts me." "But we trust you," the owner said, placing both hands on the table. "Everyone here saw what you can do. I saw it, and I need someone like you. Someone who understands danger. Someone who can teach others." The workers standing nearby nodded in agreement. Even the nervous young cook stepped forward. "Please," he said softly, "I want to learn from you. You saved me too." Evan's throat tightened. His heart felt heavy and light at the same time. "I don't know if I deserve this," he whispered. The mother leaned closer. "Everyone deserves a second chance, especially someone who risked everything to protect strangers." The father nodded. "You saved our daughter. That means more than you'll ever understand." The little girl chimed in, "You're my hero now." Evan felt tears forming, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. He blinked hard, trying to stop them, but the warmth in the room made it impossible. For the first time, he didn't feel like a shadow in the corner of the street. He felt seen, valued, needed. Finally, the owner spoke again. "Evan, I want to offer you a job. A real job. In my kitchen. Not because I pity you, but because you earned it tonight." The entire room waited for Evan's answer. He looked at the family, at the cook, at the owner. And then at the little girl smiling at him like he was the brightest thing in the world. Evan took a shaky breath. Maybe, he whispered. It's time to start again. And just like that, in one night, after years of pain, Evan's life began to change. You saved my business. You saved lives. He paused, then added, you don't belong on the street. You belong in a kitchen. Evan shook his head in confusion. I can't go back. My career is over. No one trusts me. But we trust you, the owner said, placing both hands on the table. Everyone here saw what you can do. I saw it, and I need someone like you. Someone who understands danger. Someone who can teach others. The workers standing nearby nodded in agreement. Even the nervous young cook stepped forward. Please, he said softly. I want to learn from you. You saved me too. Evan's throat tightened. His heart felt heavy and light at the same time. I don't know if I deserve this, he whispered. The mother leaned closer. Everyone deserves a second chance. Especially someone who risked everything to protect strangers. The father nodded. You saved our daughter. That means more than you'll ever understand. The little girl chimed in. You're my hero now. Evan felt tears forming, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. He blinked hard, trying to stop them, but the warmth in the room made it impossible. For the first time, he didn't feel like a shadow in the corner of the street. He felt seen, valued, needed. Finally, the owner spoke again. Evan, I want to offer you a job. A real job. In my kitchen. Not because I pity you, but because you earned it tonight. The entire room waited for Evan's answer. He looked at the family, at the cook, at the owner. And then at the little girl smiling at him like he was the brightest thing in the world. Evan took a shaky breath. Maybe, he whispered. It's time to start again. And just like that, in one night,